Saturday View on Midlands 103. With thanks to Lumclean Energy, pioneering innovation, powering progress. LumcleanEnergy.com. Have your say. Call 0818 300 103. Text or WhatsApp your Saturday View to 083 3010 103.
Hello and a very good morning. It's time for you to have your Saturday View with me, Ronan Berry. As you've heard, 083 3010 103, the text and WhatsApp number, the quickest way to get in touch here this morning. Otherwise, you can give Nelly a call on 0818 300 103. And what have we got coming up for you this morning? Well, a little bit later on, we'll get a little preview of the Paris 2024 Olympics. Huge expectations from an Irish perspective. So we'll look in and see what we should be looking out for, who we should be looking out for, and maybe what the chances are of us exceeding our record medal haul from the last Olympics. Some phenomenal Irish athletes, many from around the Midlands area, in Paris at the minute, ready to rock. Some have started already, some are out again tomorrow, so lots to look forward to there. Also, the Durrow Scarecrow Festival, it kicks off again tomorrow. A hugely successful event and really popular event, and has been going strong for many years in Durrow and County Laois. But like a lot of festivals too, it can face challenges, and reports in the papers recently suggest that it may not go ahead to the same extent next year or maybe in subsequent years, because like a lot of things, there's a huge amount of work goes on behind the scenes, and you're looking for people to volunteer and get involved, and that can become a burden and a challenge at times. So we'll hear from the organisers committee of the Durrow Scarecrow Festival, supposed to talk about this year's event and see maybe what might be happening next year, or need how they can preserve that event as it goes forward, because it is such a spectacle if you drive through Durrow in the weeks and the months around the Scarecrow Festival. It's definitely something unique, so let's get a real insight into that a little bit later on. As I say, to join the conversation, 083 3010 103 is the text and WhatsApp number. But I'm going to start this morning in an area that is probably very, very relevant to many of you listening right around the Midlands, and this has been really kind of highlighted in the past. Well, there's been ongoing talks about this for a couple of years now, but the last week, and in particular the last couple of days, there's been a lot of focus on some changes in legislation that are going to have major implications, particularly in the veterinary sector and indeed for the owners of large animals. To give you a little bit of background into this, I'm talking about the Veterinary Medicinal Products, Medicated Feed and Fertilisers Regulation Bill 2023. It was signed into law last year, and under changes in this bill, the statutory instrument that would be brought in would see alterations to prescription rules and the route of supply of veterinary medicines, including some vaccines. Now, many groups of vets have been effectively up in arms about this. There's been a huge amount of meetings between various farming representative bodies, between the IFA, between Veterinary Ireland, with the Department of Agriculture, continuing right up to this week, I believe. So we're going to look into this and see, well, what implications might it have for you, particularly if you're the owner of large animals, but also what the long-term likely implications might be for the owners of smaller animals and pets alike as well. So huge, as I say, huge noise building around this in the last couple of weeks. So in studio at the minute I have Donal Lynch. He is a local vet. He's also a member of Veterinary Ireland as well. But I'm going to start with Noel Barden from the Irish Farmers Journal, because they've been covering this story quite extensively, as I say, particularly in the last week as well. Very good morning, Noel.
Good morning.
Noel, can you take us through some of the key points of this proposed piece of legislation that was signed into law last year actually and is due to come into effect? What was the basis of it, and I guess, you know, what's the typical opposition to it out there at the minute?
Yeah, well, it came back into the headlines this week and indeed in recent weeks, but it would have started, I suppose, to get a bit of coverage for a couple of years, as you mentioned. It's been on the burner for a while now. There's been quite a few twists and turns, and I suppose the latest one would have happened just last week when the Minister for Agriculture said that he was going to sign a statutory instrument on how exactly this would be enforced. So the legislation, as you might say, the primary legislation was passed already, and this is kind of coming on to the fertiliser register has been put in place. But on the veterinary medicine side of things, particularly around doses, this statutory instrument was kind of saying how it will be implemented. And the crux of it is that co-ops and merchants that sell wormers, for example, that they may be able to prescribe these to farmers, because a prescription under this legislation would be needed to buy some of the medicines that farmers would be familiar with not having to need a prescription for. So it comes down to whether or not it'll be purely just vets that will be able to write these prescriptions, or whether or not it'll be personnel within the merchants, the co-ops, the farm stores.
And is this a practice that is common in other countries or other jurisdictions?
I suppose something that the merchants would say is that there are some EU countries that would have looked down the route of having these suitably qualified personnel within farm stores who aren't qualified vets, but who would have undertaken training courses around antihelminthic resistance and animal health. So it's not unheard of, but for Ireland, it certainly would be something new.
And can you give us a sense, or have you gauged the potential, say, fears or frustrations that vets are expressing? Can you kind of capture what that is at the minute and what their primary concerns might be?
Yeah, so I know Donal is on the line. He might be able to outline them better, but from what we're hearing from vets is that essentially vets would see the sale of wormers maybe as being a potential as being a revenue source for them, and they do need to make a margin. And if they weren't able to make a margin from some of the products that prescriptions would be needed from, and vaccines is one of the things that came up as something that could change. So not all vaccines, but the ones that do need prescriptions, that they do form part of a vet's bottom line. And if they're not able to get, I suppose, revenue from this source, they'll have to look to maybe increase charges, maybe around call-out charges, which are a fairly important cost on farms, whether or not they increase or not, so that farmers can have affordable access to veterinary services when they're needed. They'd be the veterinary concerns, and I suppose maybe from the farmer point of view, it all just comes down to cost of veterinary medicines. It comes down to the availability of them. It comes down to the supply, how easy they are to get when they are needed. So the thrust of the legislation is to reduce the overall usage of antimicrobials and antiparasitics, but I suppose when they are needed, farmers are still very keen to be able to get them in a timely manner and with competition in the market.
I'm going to bring into the conversation Donal Lynch. He's a vet from Sleepbloom Veterinary in Killouren in County Offaly, and he's here with me in studio at the minute. And Donal has been heavily involved with Veterinary Ireland over the years as a past president, and I think even right up until this week has been involved with discussions with Minister for Agriculture Charlie McConalogue around this. Donal, I suppose your opinion from the vet's perspective in Veterinary Ireland on this.
Good morning, Ronan. I think it's probably worth going back to look at the 2019 regulation. That what that means is that all these products have to become prescription-only medicines. But who writes these prescriptions? So a prescription has to be written by a vet. And from our point of view in veterinary, our belief is that there should only be one type of vet, and we should all stick to the same criteria. Whereas this SI that the Minister is proposing signing is going to allow for two different types of vets. One vet who has to, like the typical vet that we're all used to, like myself, has to provide a 24-hour cover for their clients and animals under their care. And a second tier of vets that could sign prescriptions without a direct knowledge of the farm and without providing the 24-hour cover, could sign prescriptions for certain categories of products, which in this case would include antihelminthic products like Ronan or like Noel referred to.
So that 24/7 piece is a huge aspect of being a vet, particularly for large animals as well. You've got to be on call because animal welfare being a huge priority. This would effectively, dare I say, remove the incentive, but remove the desire to do 24/7 if somebody else can go to a co-op or a larger organisation and just get a prescription from potentially a non-vet, as Noel has pointed out as well.
Well, essentially the prescription would have to be written by a vet. Okay, so in Ireland it won't be possible for a non-vet to prescribe, and to my knowledge across Europe or across the EU, all prescriptions have to be written by vets. The challenge we're looking at is that there's, like I say, potentially of two different types of vets. How that affects the 24-hour service, like, let's be honest, in any walk of life, providing a 24-hour service and working at night time is not popular. That's just a fact of life. But we do it because it's part of what I and other vets signed up to when we went to college. It wasn't hidden. We knew we had to get out of bed at night to go to cows calving. But it's not only farm animals, it is dogs and cats as well. So currently I would say that this time of the year, more than 50% of our out-of-hours call-outs would be small animals. Obviously, when you go to the springtime, we would have a much higher number of farm animal call-outs. But when I look and say, if there's two different vets and one doesn't have to get out of bed at night and the other does, well, naturally the one who does have to get out of bed at night is going to look towards the job that doesn't require this out of hours. That's going to take away the number of vets we have available to provide this service. We're very limited at the moment. We have about 600 vets working in the farm animal sector in Ireland. And when you break that down across the country, and obviously everybody can't work every night, so we've a serious challenge as it is in staffing it. If anything else happens, that challenge looks like being insurmountable.
You've been heavily involved, as I say, with meetings with the department, with the minister, right up until recently on this too. Is this something that is a given that's going to be signed in, or what at this point can ensure the voices and the concerns of vets like yourselves are heard?
So we would hope it's not a done deal. Like, the minister certainly has taken on board and listened to our concerns as he has concerns of other bodies. I don't know at this stage, is it going to be signed or not, and in what format it is going to be signed. I would hope that the minister has heard, and like what's been in the media from farming organisations, from farmers themselves, from vets expressing the concerns that we have. And they do acknowledge these concerns are very real concerns. So I suppose we would have to say we would be optimistic that the minister would take on board what he has listened to.
And have you put forward any proposed changes or amendments to this before it goes through that would appease maybe membership and appease other vets?
Well, I suppose our view is that all prescriptions should be the same. So the prescription should be written by, and I'm going to talk about farm animals in this case, by the farm vet who's providing services to that farm. So he knows the farmer, he knows the farm, he knows the animals, and he or she is the person who will get out of bed at night. And it's not only if there's a cow calving, but it's also if there's an adverse reaction to the drug in question that's been used, which, even though rare, does happen. But also, maybe to give an example of an anthelmintic product that's used to treat lungworms. If it's used on a Friday, for example, and the animals don't respond as well as they should, it's not unusual for some of those animals to present with pneumonia on a Sunday. And it is absolutely important that the vet who has signed the prescription is either personally available or has somebody else within their own practice to be available. And I think, Ronan, it's also worth pointing out, we're not here saying that the vets have to prescribe and supply. Prescription is the most important thing. And Noel did refer to the margin on some of these products, and there is absolutely no doubt that's an important part of the income of a veterinary practice nowadays. So we do need that margin, in this case, to support the out-of-hours service. And when I say out-of-hours, it's not only out-of-hours, it's emergencies during the day as well. So it could be at 12 o'clock in the day. So you have to have a vet available to do these emergency things to come in on top of maybe routine work that you might be doing.
Of course, we can't really compare to a GP service because they're run entirely different as well, where, there's been so much talk for 10, 20 years now that the number of GPs are in declining and that people aren't being attracted into that. And that is a key concern. I know that's something you've also raised with the department. You've basically said, like from Veterinary Ireland, that there will be job losses, that if this goes through as well. To what scale, given that you've already said there are major challenges in getting people into that particular area of veterinary in the first place?
So look, estimates would say that we would lose about a quarter of the farm animal vets in the country if this went through the way it was proposed initially. But I think going back to the GPs and the shortage of GPs, at least with a GP, if you're seriously ill, the option is to call an ambulance and go to the hospital. Whereas in farm animal or in small animal practice, that option isn't available.
And I know somebody who's a small animal vet would be Fionnuala Fallon from Park Veterinary, and she had a very strong-worded post on Facebook yesterday, and she started off with saying new crisis in the veterinary profession. And actually Fionnuala goes on to say that they run effectively like a small animal hospital, and they have to do radiography, to do x-rays. And so there is a huge cost involved. Labour is a huge cost, the cost of actually delivering that service as well. And she's pointed out that whilst at the minute this is very much an issue that is in the focus of the large animals, there will be likely major ramifications for small animals too, particularly when it comes to maybe, and ultimately that, she said to me yesterday, the cost of actual healthcare for pets could really go through the roof, and effectively in time owning a pet could become a luxury because if things aren't reined in. Would you see that being a possible thing, that over time this would have serious implications on people, just say getting healthcare for their dogs and cats and other animals at home?
So I think the main point that comes from that is that the out-of-hours service, which is expensive to provide, and if there's less people contributing to that, well then market forces, when there's no competition there, drive the cost of that up. And that's likely where the extra cost will be seen. But I do think that in the small animal area, that's a little bit further down the road. And direct impacts from this legislation on dogs and cats are less obvious than they are in farm animals.
But clearly, at the minute, say from a farm animal perspective, like a potential crisis, would that be fair to say?
Absolutely. Like I've never seen as much worry in the veterinary profession as I have in this. And I've been involved in Veterinary Ireland at this stage for maybe 15 years. But we had a meeting in the Horse and Jockey last week, and that meeting was attended by over 200 vets. And if you put that in perspective to a farmer meeting, considering we've only 600 large animal vets, it's like filling Porky Queeve with farmers on an issue. So that gives you an idea of how serious it is being taken.
For farmers listening, and undoubtedly many are across the Midlands at the minute, what sort of steps can they be taken, or what should they be aware of with this pending SI coming in?
I suppose the first thing I'd be saying is they should be talking to their vets and understanding the issue, and then ideally talking to local representatives so that the people who make the decisions are aware of the implications. Because obviously TDs and the minister and the government, they want to make right decisions, but they need to understand what the situation is on the ground. So the more people that feed this information up to them, the better informed they will be to make that decision.
Keeping information circulating out there and keeping a focus on this is key as well. Noel Barden from the Farmers Journal there. Noel, as Donal has just said, it's that event in the Horse and Jockey recently, it was like filling Porky Queeve at farmers. Really gives an insight into how much of an issue this could be for vets. Undoubtedly a story you will continue to cover in the next while.
Absolutely, and I suppose, as I said earlier, on a farmer point of view, it does all come down to the availability and the cost of, first of all, the veterinary medicines themselves, but then as Donal outlined, it does feed into the whole veterinary piece, which is a piece which would have been under pressure for a number of years now, being able to source vets when they are needed, especially in those out-of-hours times when there are emergencies which will crop up on farms.
Absolutely, it's a fundamental part of the farm and life, and as Donald says, it's not just during the night. Also, it could be an emergency call out during the day, and I thought that was a really interesting point, that you can't just send a big animal or an animal onto an A&E just to take the burden. It has to be dealt with there and then. But Noel Barton from the Irish Farmers Journal, thank you so much for that. Donald, I suppose a final word from yourself as well. Are you due to meet the department in the coming week as well and continue to lobby on this issue?
Well, we're certainly going to continue lobbying, and the Minister has committed that he will come back to us on it, but at what stage now we don't know, and we don't know when it'll be signed.
And just on the 600 vets in the country at the minute, and not, again, as I say, we can't compare veterinary to GPs as well, but say another sector where often there's talks about age being a huge factor. I don't mean US presidential elections, but if we look at, say, the age of priests, is it the average age of vets actually, is that something that's also creeping up out there, and is that presenting an issue, or what moves are being made to attract younger generations of vet into that sector?
Well, certainly there's a lot more vets qualifying. So the demographics across the profession are a bit unusual. So we would have a lot of younger vets working in farm animals. The difficulty we have is keeping them in practice. So we have a demographic that's getting elderly, and they're not being replaced by, let's call them, middle-aged vets. The middle-aged vets, a lot of them have left. So I suppose we are concerned to maybe the more elderly members of the profession who are still practicing and providing a very important service. When they retire, we don't have the people to step into their shoes. So we need to make sure that the people who are more recently qualified are going to step up and become practice owners, and then to allow the middle-aged ones step up to replace the older ones.
Keep it, again, because such a critical piece of infrastructure and the service there amongst our farming community and the wider community as well. Donal Lynch from Sleep Bloom Veterinary and a member of Veterinary Ireland as well. Thank you so much for that this morning, and all the very best of luck as you push forward with that campaign.
Thank you.
And thanks to Noel Barden there too from the Irish Farmers Journal. On a slightly different matter, one person has texted and said, "Good morning. I'd love to know people's opinion on the RTE bailout. Appears to just be done and dusted deal. Surely if we, the taxpayers, are funding the fantastic lifestyles of D. Forbes, Ryan Tubridy and many others, we should have a vote or some say in the way it's dealt with." Interesting point, and it's one that's been rumbling and debated at length on Midlands Today over the past couple of days in the station. But yes, definitely a point of contention. And I know even the last 24 hours, different ministers, even Heather Humphreys coming out saying she would express concerns that funding was being taken from other departments and other services in order to kind of ring fence that money for RTE. But let me know what you think across the Midlands. Is it something that you really are interested in? Do you care about? You probably will care when your TV licence is due for renewal anyway. But let me know, 083 3010 103. Or if you are a farmer or somebody in the veterinary area that has an opinion as well on what we've been speaking about there, let us know what your thoughts and feelings are. 083 3010 103. Text and WhatsApp number. Time for a quick break. After that, we're heading to Durrow for the Scarecrow Festival.
Saturday View on Midlands 183 with thanks to Lumcloon Energy, pioneering innovation, powering progress. lumcloonenergy.com.
In just a little while, we'll look at the hopes and expectations of the 133 strong Irish team that's partaking in the 2024 Paris Olympics. Some real, genuine expectations this year. And can we beat the record medal haul from the last Olympics in Tokyo? Again, we talk about areas like rowing, like boxing, athletics, where we are beginning to really excel. I mean, in the rowing, you almost feel it should be a given. But later I'll be speaking to a man from the Midlands who was part of the Irish team in the Sydney Olympics in 2000. So we'll get some insights and see exactly maybe where we should be putting our money, so to speak, on Irish athletes over the next while. If you have a standout moment from the Olympics, standout memory, let me know on 083 3010 103. I'd love to know what you remember, be it as growing up or that first thing you saw that really went, wow, the Olympics is something special, or maybe it was something really controversial. I'll tell you what came to mind yesterday. I was in Dublin and I was coming home by the N7, and we passed the Puchin Still, and it just took me right back to 1996 because I believe Michelle Smith was from out around that area. And I remember back in 1996, I think my father and an uncle were visiting somebody in Dublin, and they pulled into the Puchin Still for their dinner on the way home, and they came home with like t-shirts and hats with our golden girl Michelle and pictures of her with her 3 gold medals on the front, and she was that national hero back then. Now she still has her medals, but her name isn't really mentioned, is it, when it comes to Irish in the Olympics anymore? And we probably all know why. So let me know any standout memories that you have of watching the Olympics. Maybe you were fortunate enough to be at the Olympics as an athlete. Maybe Pauline Curley or someone is listening this morning. Maybe you were part of a delegation went out to support one of our local athletes at some of the Olympics as well. Let me know, 083 3010 103. Would love to put some of them on air a little bit later on the show too, or read out those texts and messages. But for now, we're going to go to Durrow in County Laois because the well-known and the famous Scarecrow Festival kicks off tomorrow. It is a huge event. It's a 9-day event, and if you drive through Durrow anytime in the weeks before and weeks after, you're just captivated by the creativity of seeing these scarecrows. But the Laois Nationalist reported during the week that this may be the last time it runs to such a scale, the 9-day event. So to look at this a little bit deeper, I'm glad to be joined by Anne Conroy. Very good morning, Anne.
Hi, Ronan. How are you?
Absolutely. How are preparations going, I suppose, first and foremost?
Oh, good. busy. Strong coming out of every angle, but all good. Yeah,
I'm sure. And you're expecting how many visitors approximately over the next week or so?
Well, if only we knew. But I suppose we do a bit of counting over the last few festivals, and of those that we record, which are really only the people that come in through the enclosed area, over the course of 9 days, we would have close to 30,000. Actually, probably I think we broke the 30 over the 9 days last year. So the huge numbers in a small town. Which has, a fair old impact,
they're phenomenal numbers as well. It began in 2012. Any idea where the original concept came from?
Yeah, the precursor to the Scarecrow Festival was the Howya Festival. The previous committee was there of the Development Forum, at that time chaired by our lovely friend Hugh Shepherd, who recently passed away and left us all heartbroken. But Hughie was a huge character. But Hughie saw some element of a scarecrow competition in a festival in the UK or somewhere, I think, and he thought, oh, that would fit in nicely in rural Durrow. So he put it in as a part of the festival at that time. It turned out to be a huge attraction and very popular at that time. So the following year, they kind of rebranded everything the Durrow Scarecrow Festival, and it's become the International Durrow Scarecrow Festival, so they can come from anywhere to enter. And that's what it's morphed into, and it's like the numbers just have grown and grown and grown.
It's
so
fantastic, and I always love seeing that little bit of ingenuity. I mean, it's like I think there's International Turn-Up Festival in Ballydehob, and you kind of go, where did these things start from? And sometimes it just takes a crazy idea and it really works as well. But in terms of, like, there's huge amounts of events, but like the competition itself, you're probably getting entries from across the world at this point, are you?
Well, we've had some from the UK. We've had people who are home on holidays. I suppose we could claim they come from further than they do. But, there is a real interest in it from abroad. And I suppose we connect with other groups in the UK and in the States. And there's a great bit of banter between us as well. So it's lovely to look at the comparisons. But we have had entries from Northern Europe, actually, and from the UK, yes. So lovely to have that kind of variety.
But as I mentioned at the start, though, the Laois Nationalist reported there on Monday that the 9-day span for the festival, that this year could be the last time that it'll be held in that format as well. What's the reason for that?
The reason for that, I suppose, like anything, things are become a huge. We've nearly, what's the word? We've created a monster in a way. The committee is made up of 12 or 14 people, and it's a huge undertaking. And while we get fantastic support and volunteers come on board as the thing gains momentum, but it's a huge workload for a small committee. For like really since Patrick's Day, we're tipping away at this, So it's just the workload has become just untenable, and it's hard to get it going. And look, volunteers, people, Durrow's a busy spot. There's soccer is hugely strong here, the Lions Club, the Harps Club. There's several different things that pull people in different directions, So it's just harder to get volunteers. And I suppose since COVID, including myself, I got very used to sitting with no agenda every evening. So it is harder, But and that's across the globe. I don't think you'd talk to any community group and find that they have too many volunteers. So that's kind of it's just a hard workload for a small group of people for a long time. As I said, people do come on board, no doubt, and they're fantastic. And we will get the help, when the thing kicks off. People will see, oh God, there's help needed there. So, and I might as well put a shout out this minute if anyone is listening. Do not be shy about coming forward, and just look up our webpage, and a bit of help the course of the week will be fantastic. You can imagine the amount of jobs that need doing. Car park attendant and all the different bits, picking up litter as we go along, and just being a presence really in a high-vis jacket if a child falls or whatever. So there's loads of small jobs for anybody who's willing and able.
As they say, it takes a village as well. It was the good news. Like, this by no means mean it's not the end of the Scarecrow Festival. You just have to re-examine maybe the format for next year. Have you had any kind of tentative discussions around that and what?
We haven't, to be honest with you. We're going to literally see how this goes. 9 days is just it's a very big, expansive time to cover, with bodies. So we're going to revisit the whole thing and see what we come up with. But look, there's thoughts and talks happening, and we're thinking more like a 3-day thing. We kind of look around at other festivals and say, oh God, imagine, look at them, how lucky they are, they're finished already. So we have had fantastic years at this. Our kids, my kids have had the best youth growing up, and all my generation of kids have had a great times, But these things run their course in terms of just the length of it is just a bit hard to keep maintaining it, So we're really not making any commitment to what next year will hold until we see how this year goes. But look, we're staying enthusiastic. Fundraisers are required, so we have a big plan to finish off a community hub, and that's the goal. So once we get that done, might sail off into the sunset or something, but we'll stay plugging and see. We'll talk after this year and see what comes out. But
fantastic.
We see what the appetite is for, I suppose.
I don't suspect you're going to sail off into the sunset anyway, but it all kicks off tomorrow. That's the important thing. 28th of July on Sunday, 1:15 with local man Bernard O'Shea.
Yeah, and even before that, we'll have a bit of music with a young two young brothers from Abbey League, the Kelly brothers. We have the pipe band. We have Abbey folk from Abbey League. We have loads of live music over the course of the 9 days. And Bernard is doing the official opening at that time, 1:15. But lovely local talent, loads of markets and some lovely stalls. We have workshops for kids, live music. The bouncy castles are always a big attraction. We have two huge big, I can't remember the language on the slides, two huge big slides. And we have, look, there's something for everyone, 2 mega slides is what they're called. We have a lovely dog event, a free dog event. We try to have some free events outside of the village. Obviously, our purpose is to raise a few bob, but we also, we don't want to be greedy, so we have lovely free stuff around, and if you only come in and walk around, but there's lots to be seen.
Absolutely, yeah. The admission prices are more than reasonable when you see some of the prices that are floating around for some events and particularly concerts and stuff like that as well. Yeah. So, and again, of course, to point out all that money, you are raising funds for Durrow Development Forum in any case as well. So, look, great to hear that it's there.
We do our best to kind of get the balance right.
As you say yourselves, you've created a monster of sorts. You just want to cage that monster now and see how you can get the best from it, and certainly keep Durrow in the Midlands on the map. But
exactly, yeah. So look, there's great stuff even up already since yesterday evening. Some huge creations went up around, so don't be shy. Come over and visit Durrow. We're happy to see you.
And Conroy, all the very best with the festival, and I hope to pop by sometime over the next week anyway, and all the very best with you, with all those volunteers. And if anyone's listening and wants to just give a dig out for a couple of hours or a day, you know how to get in touch with Durrow Development Forum there. And Conroy, thank you so much for that this morning. It's really such a unique event and a unique festival, and love to hear where it came from originally, and then add the word international to it, and all of a sudden it becomes this bigger thing. It's become so big, as you can feel, they want to just try and rein in a little bit and make sure, I guess, they can deliver value for everybody. So the committee need to get value from it, continue to raise funds for Durrow Development Forum, but also make sure that people can continue to really enjoy it and provide that world-class event that they have been doing. So all the very best to everybody involved with that. Time now for a quick break. After that, we're going to look at Ireland's hopes for the 2024 Paris Olympics. Now, one person has texted in and said, just by the way, hello there, did you know that Michelle Smith, was never proven to be positive? Absolutely, that's why I said she still has her medals. She was never stripped of them. But it seems to be written out of our Olympic history there, if that's fair to say. But she absolutely does still have her 3 gold medals. She was accused of certain things. Nothing was ever proven. But anyway, thank you for that as well. It's important that we clarify that on air. But keep your messages coming in there around your most memorable or standout Olympic moments. And I'll be back with you very shortly.
Saturday View on Midlands 183, with thanks to Lumcloon Energy, pioneering innovation, powering progress. LumcloonEnergy.com.
So did you catch the opening ceremony for the Paris 2024 Olympics last night? I caught most of it there. I thought it was stunning, a real ripping up the script and taking it outside of a conventional stadium and using the whole city. In fairness, they have some wonderful landmarks that they were able to bring into that. But a huge effort, a real change in mindset too, and real a spectacle of sorts. One I think we'll all remember for many years to come. Now, huge expectations on Ireland's team heading into this Olympics. And if I do a quick look at our roll of honour, in Rio in 2016, we sent 77 athletes, came home with 2 medals. In Tokyo 2020, 116 athletes came home with 4 medals. Our best haul so far has been in London in 2012. We sent over 66 athletes and came back with 6 medals. There are high expectations and hopes that we will exceed that number in the Paris Olympics, because all you have to do is look back over our recent history in many key areas like rowing, like boxing, and particularly most recently with athletics, and there's gold medals and silvers and bronzes and new records and national records, and some of our runners getting close to world records in their various disciplines as well. A fantastic time to be Irish and to be looking ahead of the Olympics. Of course, massive local involvement here from around the Midlands and in so many sports too. So let's try and gauge what level of anticipation there is there, and try and see what our expectations really should be like. And who better to talk to than Burman Gordon Kennedy. Gordon is a former 2-time national champion. He joined Tullamore Harriers in 1999, and the following year, at just 19 years old, he was part of the Irish team in Australia when he was picked as a sub for the Irish 4x400 relay team at the 2000 Sydney Olympic Games. So he knows a thing or two about the Olympics. Very good morning, Gordon.
Morning. How you doing?
Absolutely fantastic. Look, it's great to speak to somebody who has been there. When you watch things like the opening ceremony last night, or you see things about the Olympic Village, does it bring back lots of good memories?
Oh, Oh my God, yes. And although it's 24 years ago, I had still the tingles up my neck last night when the Irish were announced, and like what a spectacle in terms of Paris and for the athletes as well. I mean, I know when I went, we had to sit in a basketball stadium for a couple of hours and watch the procession, whereas the athletes were nearly in the middle of the procession last night, which was fantastic. So no, it was great memories brought back for sure.
It was. I think it was lovely that so many. I think was there over 200,000. I think free tickets available for people to line the banks of the Seine and the various places too. So like it really brought the city into it, which was a fantastic spectacle. But yes, we saw a number of the Irish athletes on the boat last night. Of course, our own Shane Lowry, local man, one of the flag bearers. But massive expectations and hope and genuine hope for this time. Who should we be looking out for in particular over the next 2 weeks?
Oh, look, I mean, to be honest, there's so many different disciplines that we're really punching above our weight in at the minute. I mean, obviously, boxing has always been very, very good for Ireland in terms of medal hopes. The rowers over the last couple of Olympics have really, really come to fore, and I think there's even more of them this time. They're expectant of medals. And I will hold out a candle in athletics in terms of we have a couple of great athletes in athletics that have the potential. And everybody, I suppose, we all have to remember the Olympics is the top 1% of 1%. So everybody has to be on form in this year, in the next 2 weeks. And honestly, anything can put both ours and other nations off. So although the expectations are high, I think we all have to remember the work that all of these athletes, all 133 they've put in over the last 4 years to get them to this particular stage, and it's something that's going to live with them for the rest of their lives in terms of being there. And whatever performance they put out, I think we should be so proud of all of our athletes.
I think that's it, because you obviously would have that close link with the athletics, but if we look at even the boxing, and I think is it 10 female boxers, something like, and again up at the top level of their sport, and sometimes we don't even talk about the rowing, and because we nearly expect that if there's a Donovan involved or Skibberina involved, we're probably going to bring a medal. I mean, that's a major change in sort of mindset for Irish people.
Completely. I mean, if you think of rowing before Rio, it was nearly, I won't say non-existent, but it was very much on the periphery in terms of Ireland. Whereas from Rio on, you're right. If you mention O'Donovan, we nearly expect a medal, and it's such a an Olympic medal, if you like, for the O'Donovans. There's only been 3. This is their third Olympics, which is a small number in their careers. But we are nearly expectant that they will win a medal. And the hopes and prayers are with all of them, in terms of what they can do. But I mean, for Offaly, the Super Six, we've got 6 fabulous athletes out there competing for Offaly from all parts of Offaly. And even, I know you introduced me as a Burman, but I'm from Shinrone. And we have Megan Armitage from Shinrone out there as well competing, who took up the cycling very, very late in life in terms of professional career.
That's it, fantastic, and we're getting very parochial and tribal now.
Yeah,
all right,
I know.
It's fantastic, and even we can throw in Shane Lowry into that mix as well.
Absolutely.
Again, absolutely no reason to say that he won't go really, really well in the golf, and you just know by him he would absolutely, I'd say he would enjoy having a gold medal around his neck, and no better person.
Oh my God, yes. And has every chance of winning a gold medal. This is the thing. It's there's so many sports out there that we're kind of nearly spoiled. But I'm really looking forward to the games. I'm so delighted it's in Europe. We're in the same time zone, so we don't have to wait up until 2 a.m. for finals and that. We can enjoy the spectacle, and I know my own kids will be given out to me because I'll take over the television for the next few weeks, and I'm lucky enough I'm going over for 2 days at the Olympics as well, because it's going to be gone from Europe for the next, 3-4 cycles. And, who knows then, what will be all like. So you just have to grab the opportunity now.
But again, a great spectacle, and undoubtedly one that just opens kids' eyes to athletics. And I'm sure from a recruitment perspective, and then on the back of having such a strong Irish team there, it should pay off dividends for our local clubs.
Yep. My kids are inside at the TV now watching synchronized diving. There's sports that you normally don't watch outside of the Olympics, but we'll be all watching everything, in in awe, you know what I mean, in terms of 2 people doing synchronized diving and hitting perfect scores. It's incredible what we watch for the next 2 weeks as well, not just our own sports, but all sports.
That is indeed, and you get drawn in. I'd say myself, I'll watch all the sports. I just can't get my head around dressage when it comes to the horses, unfortunately. I'll probably offend people by saying that, but there's so many other sports. There you go now. So, look, you know,
actually, if the stadium is in the Palace of Versailles, so I mean, in terms of a city to have this games, it's just incredible, the spectacle. Like, just could you imagine a dressage event in front of the Palace of Versailles, or the beach volleyball is in front of the Eiffel Tower? I think it's just going to be incredible watching over the next few weeks.
It's fantastic. I think the surfing is in Tahiti or somewhere. So yeah, it's a great, great location. Gordon, listen, all the very best. Thank you for coming on this morning, and enjoy your couple of days in Paris as well. And hopefully we'll be on celebrating a couple of medals in the next 2 weeks anyway. But for now, Gordon Kennedy, there's a former 2-time national champion and part of the Irish Olympic team at the 2000 Sydney Games. So fingers crossed, huge expectations, huge excitement. Let's support our Irish athletes and our Midlands athletes throughout the next 2 weeks, and hopefully we'll bring home a couple of medals and keep Team Ireland up there and strong and do us all proud as they always do. Time for me now to wrap up for this morning. Lorraine McCormick will be here next with Feel Good Saturday. Just to say a quick thank you to Donal Lynch from Slieve Bloom Veterinary and to Noel Bard from Irish Farmers Journal, talking about that new statutory instrument that looks like likely to come in, that will have big implications in terms of vets prescribing medicines too, and potential implications on 24/7 services of vets and all that type of stuff. To Anne Conroy there from Durrow Scarecrow Festival, and of course to Gordon Kennedy, who just heard from. Take care. I'll talk to you all very, very soon. Big thanks to Nelly in production also. Stay safe. Talk soon.
Saturday View, with thanks to Lumcloon Energy, pioneering innovation, powering progress. Lumcloonenergy.com. Midlands 103.